clock.
Okay.
And let me just turn it on here to make sure that we are on. Let's see. Yep, we are. Yay! so, so we'll just give it a couple of minutes to get everything connected and for people to get on. And so just wanted to check in and see how you're doing, Gina.
Great. Well, it's nice to see you, Rosalie.
It's nice to see you too. What's the temperature over there where you're at?
It's warm. It's high 80s or so and sunny. So it's nice weather. Yeah, we're
Oh my
lucky.
gosh, that's I cannot imagine that right now because I'm in the DC area and it's, let's see, it is 42 degrees. But it will be in the 80s in a few months here and humid.
Yes, yeah. Humid summers of DC. Uh,
Oh, I've got a message that there's something happening to the video. Okay, I think it's working now. Let's see. I was on another Facebook Live a few weeks ago, and we weren't experiencing a storm or anything. All of a sudden, my power went out. My computer just turned black. All the lights turned off, and I was so confused, and I didn't know what happened to the live feed. And so fortunately the power turned back on, and then I logged back on and it was still rolling. So the person that I was talking to was very kind and very understandable. She was also in another country as well, and so she said it happens quite often where she's at.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, I'm glad that you're here, Gina. Thanks for coming on and spending some time with me and the viewers of Postpartum Wellness. Before we get started, I'd like to go ahead and introduce everyone to you. So you're Gina Carmo, and you grew up in northeastern Ohio, and you've spent the last several years living and working in the travel industry in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. You earned your bachelor's degree from Ohio University, and then you lived in the Washington D.C. area for 6 years. And as part of your job in DC, you actually traveled to various parts of the world, including Brazil. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until 2005 that you moved to Rio, where you learned Portuguese and that you worked for a Brazilian incoming tour operator for a few years. And then in 2009, you launched your own company, Inspired Travel. Mm-hmm. It's so amazing. So you've been married to Gilberto for nearly 14 years. You have 2 beautiful children. They're 3 and 5 years old. Clearly, you love to travel and you love spending time at the beach and enjoy nature. And on those nights that, your kids have gone to bed early and you're not completely spent and exhausted, you enjoy reading nonfiction books. So welcome, Gina. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Rosalie.
Of course. I'd love for you to just start by, telling our viewers about your company, Inspired Travel, and how you got started with it.
Okay. So, Inspired Travel, we are an incoming tourism operator based in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And so most of our clients are in the niche of educational travel. And so what that means, these are people coming to us are usually from groups affiliated with art museums or a university alumni travel program, or even undergraduate university students traveling with a professor as part of a course, NGOs wanting to learn more about an environmental issue. It can be a number of different things. We create these customized programs for them throughout the country to connect them to people here in Brazil and to showcase the culture and the history and give them a great behind the scenes view of what's happening here, the reality. And then in between, you know, all these educational activities, also doing some things like cooking classes and dance classes and things just to connect more with the culture. Sometimes we also do work with families and individuals as well. And like I said, it's mostly, we are based in Rio, but then we do work throughout Brazil. So it gives us a chance to, based on what people are interested in, to offer good suggestions to them and what they might want to do when they come here.
Oh my gosh, that just sounds amazing. I mean, to be able to coordinate a trip for groups or individuals, families, whether it's in the Rio de Janeiro area or, like you said, throughout the entire country of Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil's a huge country. It's actually larger than the continental United States, and so there's a lot here that we have, and it's very diverse in terms of the typography and the people and the cuisines and things. So it's a really, for me, I love it. I found myself, as you mentioned, I worked in DC for several years, and the company that I worked for there at the time, I was setting up educational programs for university students, American university students. We would take them to Australia and South Africa and various different countries. In Brazil, these were places that I was setting things up. So I was traveling back and forth a lot, and we're running these programs. And then on one of those trips in actually 2004 is when I met Gilberto, who is my husband that you mentioned. We met through mutual friends and clicked, but then I went back to DC and wasn't sure what was going to happen. And then I was here for work. And then things happened with our company, and there were lots of changes and downsizing this company in DC at the time. And then I was let go from my position. I was told when I was here in Brazil that I no longer had my job. And so at the moment, it was really tough, sad. I mean, I was distraught. I remember calling my parents, and, you know, it was just, I didn't know how I was going to handle this situation. I was young and hadn't experienced that before. But then because that happened, I was then in turn offered a position here in Brazil with a travel company that I was their client. But then they said, hey, come and work for us and we'll support your visa and we would love to have you on board. And I had known these people for several years. And so then I was able to make that big transition to come here to Brazil. And so I don't think I would have done it unless I was sort of, you know, I lost my job and said, what else? I don't have anywhere to live. You know, let's go. I have this guy that I'm interested in. And I mentioned Berto, and let's go see if I can learn Portuguese and work in a different country. And so I did it, not expecting to stay that long, but I did. I've been here for, it's over 15 years now. And I really just love it. I feel like I learn new things every day. It's an interesting place to live, and I enjoy it. And in terms of starting my own business, I appreciate all the opportunities I was given with that company that hired me, but I just wanted to focus more on educational travel because that's what my background was with that job in DC. And so they didn't really want to go down that path. And so I decided to leave that position. And we had some support from a friend who made an investment in us, gave us the money to start up the company and open our office. And it was great because he didn't really want anything in return. He was just there to loan us the money, and then we were to pay him back a couple years later to get the business started. And then I started attending conferences and through contacts, and it's a small niche around the world that focus on this type of travel. And so really just I was really fortunate to just have lots of great opportunities so far, and just looking forward to once COVID passes and people can safely travel again, for us to get back into that, of that, giving people the opportunity to connect with others.
Yeah, I love your story. It's just very, very romantic, actually. There's some heartbreak, which includes, losing a job, but then also meeting someone that you eventually got married to,
Yes,
have a family with, and then like doing something like moving to a completely different country and immersing yourself in a culture and for such a long period of time. It's very like courageous and exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is challenging. I mean, it's certainly challenging at times, and there are things that I miss about the U.S. sometimes. But at this time in my life, I think this is still a good place for me to be. I don't know what will happen in the future. I never envisioned me living in Brazil, when I was younger, and I didn't even know, and I only came about this through that job because, my supervisor was like, "Oh, we want you to be responsible for the programs in Brazil." I knew nothing about Brazil. I remember going to the library, dating myself. So, doing research and things and trying to learn as much as I could through my trips here. But yeah, it's really great. And it's just a different perspective. I think when you have the chance to live outside of the US, on things and can just learn more. Even I learn new things even about my own country, that I didn't really, when I have to explain things to people, why are things this way in the US, why, I don't really know why, and it's hard to explain. It's really, for me, it's an interesting way to live. I like it.
Yeah. And in regards to Inspire Travel, you were mentioning that you focus on educational groups, families, individuals, and are your clients primarily coming from the United States?
Yeah, so I would say probably about 80% of our clients are from the United States, and the others come from the United Kingdom or Australia. And so a lot of times we work with companies that are in the United States. In the travel industry, there are several layers, because it's not common if you as a person in DC, you're probably not going to call someone all the way in Brazil or India or wherever you want to travel and say, "Oh, help me with this trip." You're going to contact your local travel agent or someone that's based there, and then they're going to contact us, and maybe it goes through a few layers. But so most of our clients are educational travel companies or schools in the United States who then work and putting together this program with us to sell to their travelers. So, and the same with individuals. Yes. And so sometimes it's, every travel company in the US has their people like on the ground, in each of the countries they work in, that you need this because we're the people who live here and can give you the most accurate, up-to-date information. And in case there's some sort of, emergency or thing, you have people that are there in country. So that's a necessary part of the process there.
That's really interesting because I don't, I mean, I, for myself, like I've never actually thought about that because you're right. When I personally travel, I'm just like, either trying to figure it out myself, right? Or I'm reaching out to a travel agency here. It doesn't usually cross my mind to reach out to an organization at the destination that I'm wanting to go to. And so to know that, when I reach out to someone here in my community or just where I'm at, that, like you said, I'd never really thought about there being different layers, and it makes me feel even more confident because then, because I'm just like, how would this person here really know what's going on down there? And they don't, but it's great. There are the contacts that are established.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Well, fantastic. So I don't think we can deny that COVID has certainly impacted the travel industry, and it certainly has, the pandemic has changed how we travel. And I want to kind of shift gears here and talk about traveling post-COVID, or when people feel like they're ready to travel, whether, hopefully we're getting vaccinated and when places start opening up. If you could speak to how people can explore Brazil once they start traveling again.
Sure. So I think, you could start by doing some research on your own, or like we said, reach out to a travel agent, or if there's even, you can look into like if you attended university, for example, your alumni association, they probably organize trips abroad, you know. Maybe like the local botanical gardens has a group that travels. And so there's lots of organizations that do trips. But if you're specifically interested in coming here to Brazil, I think that it's important to keep in mind how large the country is, you know, and so most of the travel between the destinations is done by plane. And so just having someone that, you know, you can count on, you know, whether it's any of those people that I've mentioned that you could count on to give you accurate information on flight times, distances, and things. So you have an idea when you're planning your trip of how long it's going to take to get around the country. Because you have, for example, up in the far north, there's the Amazon region, which is amazing, beautiful forests, but it's like a 4-hour flight from Rio. So it's a long distance. So some people don't always have that in mind. And, you know, we have the world's largest wetlands region, the Pantanal, where there's lots of wildlife there to see. That's south of the Amazon. So I think in terms of nature, we have Iguazu Falls in the south. That's the world's widest waterfalls. Lots of opportunities for nature, beautiful beaches, but also great for history and culture. Outside of Africa, Brazil has the largest number of African descendants here. There were about 10 times as many slaves brought from Africa to Brazil in comparison to the United States. And so there's a really strong Afro-Brazilian culture here. And so I think that's a really interesting aspect to tap into and learn more about that and the different religious differences and foods and history. We had a gold rush here in the 1800s. That's interesting in the interior of Brazil to learn about. Lots of different things, you know, cooking and eating. And I think whatever you can do, no matter if you travel to Brazil or to other countries, is to try to set up some kind of activity where you are really interacting with locals. So that, you know, if you have a friend in a country, that's great. Or if you have a travel agent that can hook you up with someone that they know, you can even just organizing a dinner, or you want to go out for a drink, or you want to go out for a fresh coconut water, whatever, just to have the interaction with local people, I think is really important. For me personally, it's something that I always try to do on my trips, you know, and have just a chance to talk to people, because sometimes you just to get a little bit below the surface of the place that you're visiting and learn what day-to-day life is like. I think it's enlightening.
It is definitely for sure.
Yeah.
Specifically traveling in Brazil, like you've mentioned a few times, that it's a really large country and very, very diverse. Like for someone who's never been there or who's only been there a handful of times, like what would your recommendation be as far as time period? Like as far as like when is the best time, if there is any best time to visit Brazil? And then if a group or a family would be is planning a trip to Brazil, is there a good like time, like how many days or weeks would
Yes,
you?
yes. Well, the flights, almost all the flights from the United States are overnight flights to get here. And so time wise, you know, from Miami to Rio, for example, it's an 8-hour flight. And so you have to like keep in mind that it's a journey to get here, you know? And so I would say you want to spend at least a week, you know, preferably, you know, 10 days or longer if you could. But I would think if you're coming all the way here, it's not really worth it just to spend like, you know, a couple of days. You're going to come here, try to spend a week or so if you're here. The cities where you would probably fly into would either be Sao Paulo, which is the largest city of Brazil, and there's lots of museums, great restaurants. It's kind of, a lot of people compare it to New York City. There's lots of different cultural things there. Or Rio, you would probably fly into. And Rio is south of Sao Paulo. That's where I live now, and we're on the coast, and so there's a beach scene, but then we also have a great part of downtown, the historical center of downtown, that we're, you know, the city as well. And so it's not only beach, we have lots of other things to offer here too, and the mountains and the the beautiful forests on the mountains and things. I think that, so you fly into one of those cities, and then depending upon what you're interested could also affect on when you might travel here. So there are lots of different festivals and cultural activities that are interesting. So you might want to build your trip around that. Um, for example, in the period of the month of June, there's these parties called Festa Junina, the June festivals. And so that's something where, you know, you have lots of different traditional dancing and foods and things that you're not going to see the rest of the time of the year. So if you're interested in something like that, then you might want to come during that period of year. Our seasons are opposite. And so, you know, when you're going in, you're going to go into summer soon. I know it's still cold in DC, but soon you'll be going into summer, and we'll be going into our winter time here. Most of, you know, a city like Rio or Sao Paulo, it's not going to get too cold in the winter, but in the south of Brazil, it can snow. And so it's just important to keep in mind, you know, when some people prefer to travel when it's warmer, others cooler, to keep the weather in mind. And also when you're thinking about things like, if you do want to go to somewhere like the Amazon or the Pantanal to see those animals, the levels of the water is going to impact your trip. So this again would be really helpful to have someone who knows the region and can give you some advice on when, you know, for example, like the Pantanal, the floodlands, the floodplains fill with water from about June or July until October, November. Or sorry, that's when the dry season is. And the other half of the year, it's when it fills with water. So when it's filled with water, you're not going to see that many animals. But from July until October, you're going to see a lot of animals there. And so it could make a difference, you know, when you're traveling. We have school holidays here, December and January. So there's more Brazilians traveling around, and but it's in the summertime, so it's great for us because it could be a fun time to visit if it's cooler for you there in the States, and then to come here and celebrate New Year's Eve or Christmas or, you know, a holiday with us here in the summertime as well.
Fantastic. And so I definitely want to touch upon kids, of course. I mean, we're postpartum wellness. So if you could talk a little bit about traveling with children, 'cause I mean, I know for sure that I've heard many moms experience a lot of anxiety traveling with kids, as well as families thinking that they just have to delay travel until their children are older. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit more about your thoughts.
Sure. Well, we have two children. They're 5 and 3 right now. And before having kids, I traveled a lot, and I love traveling, and so did my husband. And, you know, when I was pregnant with my daughter, my first child, my daughter, a lot of people told us, you know, your traveling days are done. You're not going to go on any more trips. And it made me really sad because I felt like travel was such a part of my life, and I didn't want to lose that. And so we decided we were going to travel with her. And her first trip was about when she was 3 months old. And then we took her all over the place. And I think that I don't regret that at all. And I think that if other parents are listening, you know, if they're a little bit hesitant, it's okay. But I think just go for it and do it. If you have the means to travel with your child, with their family, to do it, because I think that the experience of traveling with a child, it's also different for you too, because it also, I think for us, it allowed some interaction and opportunities with people that we wouldn't have otherwise had. You know, maybe if we're at a restaurant eating whatever, and the people notice the kids, or they'll come up and talk to us, or some cultures are, you know, children are very welcomed and treated like, you know, we visited Bali when our daughter was about 2, and she was like treated like a princess, you know, and given fresh juices and flowers in her hair, and, you know, everywhere we went. And it's just different from, you know, between different places. But I think, you know, even traveling within your own country, if you can do it, to travel with kids, it can be, you know, a little intimidating at first, because, you know, if you have a baby on your hip and, you know, they're crying or, you know, there's some problem or whatever. But I think that it's worth it to go ahead and travel if you can, and to not worry so much about maybe what other people might be thinking. You know, there's a lot of people who have gone through the parenting experience, and so they can empathize, with you. And I think that if you have the chance to travel with your kids, to certainly go ahead and do it.
You're very clear about supporting that.
Yeah, because I just think you shouldn't have to. For me, I felt like I don't want to give this up because this is like really important for me. And even though our children are very young, it's the travel they've done so far, I feel has had a great impact on their life, and they've been able to see some amazing things, and been exposed to different people and different cultures. And I think that that's going to really help shape them, as they're older. They're not living in a bubble of just the sameness. They're living in a global society, and so I think for them, I hope that it continues to be part of their life as they grow older, and that they enjoy it as much as we do.
I want to share with our viewers the story that you shared with me before we got on live, and how your kids, who again are 5 and 3, have incorporated travel into their imaginary play, which we all know children engage in. And so if you could just kind of share, if you don't mind.
Yes, I was sharing with you they do lots of different things, but even like, for example, they pretend they're on the airplane. So like they'll sit, on their bed, one in front of the other. And, we have their little recording of the ding dong, the sound that you hear when the doors are closed on the flight. And then, my husband will be there making the announcements, pretending he's the pilot. And then our daughter will come, she'll get out of her seat and she'll pretend that she's serving the food as the flight attendant would, pushing the plastic, fruits and things she has on her stroller down past the bed to, oh, what kind of food would you like? You want chicken or beef or, whatever, that they've just incorporated this into their life. And, we have maps hanging up so they can see that there's different parts of the world. And, it's just, I encourage people to do that if they can expose them to different things. And like I said, not even just like internationally, even just within the United States, because if you have people living in DC, life in another state in the West or the South is going to be a totally different, experience too. So if they could see that, we've been to the US and they've seen like the sequoias in California, like we've been to Montgomery in Alabama and learn about the history and just, Boston, different things. I think whatever you can expose your kids to, if you're interested, do it.
Thanks, Gina. Well, I want to circle back around to your business, Inspire Travel, and recognize that you're a working mom and you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. And if you could speak a little bit about balancing motherhood and business ownership, and what that's been like for you.
Hard. It is hard. It is, because I had this vision before our first child was born. I thought I was just going to like put her in the pack and play, and she was going to sit there, entertain herself, and I was going to be able to sit at my computer and work. And that doesn't, for us, it wasn't reality when it happened. And, we're fortunate in that both my husband and I, we own our own businesses, and so we can work from home, whenever we need to. And we have the flexibility of like, if we need to give attention to our children for some hours during the day, then we work at night sometimes and the weekends and things like this. So I think it's really hard. I don't know, this whole concept of like balancing. I don't balance. I don't know. I don't feel like I can balance very well. I think some days, like, I feel like I'm doing the job of the mom really well, and other days my company is doing really well. And it's hard for me to have, experiences where everything is doing really well, because it's hard because you can't. And I think that, certainly to lean upon the support of like, if you have family or friends that can help, watch your kids while you have that certain block of time to devote to your work is helpful. There have been lots of times when I've just, when our son was younger and I've had to go visit hotels or do meetings, and I just took him with me and just incorporated him into my work life. I know not everyone can do that, but if you have your own company, you make the rules. And so you can, in times that it was appropriate, I took him along with me because, we didn't have a babysitter to watch him or something. So it was just something that I was like comfortable with doing, and it was okay for the people that I was meeting with. And um, yeah, so I think that it's challenging, but for me, I don't regret either thing, becoming a mom or a business owner. I'm happy with both of them.
Like, I appreciate your comments and just your honesty and vulnerability. And I think that many working moms can really feel what you just described, and it's hard to verbally acknowledge it. And so again, thank you for that, and making it really real, because that's what it's really like, right? To
Yes, keep it real, Rosalie.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I definitely want to say thank you, Gina, for being here today and for sharing just all the knowledge that you have about um, Brazil and the travel agency, as well as sharing your personal experiences and how you got to where you're at. I definitely want our viewers to be able to contact you. So your information should be in the description of this recording, but if you could also just let our viewers know the best way to contact you, that would be great.
Sure. If anyone is interested in learning anything about Brazil or travel or anything we talked about today, you can look on our website. It's www.inspiretravel.com.br. The BR is for Brazil. And so you can check out our website, and on there you'll find we have a phone number that's a US, actually a DC phone number that rings to us here in Brazil. And then we have a Brazilian number on there, as well as the email address if you want to reach out.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, Gina. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, Rosalie. It was great talking to you.
Here.